try to make this as quick as I can. First up on both of theirs, he's saying, "Oh, my mix is just style," and then Kristóf's rebuttal is, that a bad mix isn't just a style; it's just bad mix." And I'm not sure what to say about this because there were actually some things in Robin's mix this time around that I actually didn't like, whereas, with like Robin's first round against KBA, like that's sort of like the style, and I really enjoyed it there. But there was a bit of muddiness that I'll get into later, I think. I'm not a producer or anything, so I feel like on one hand, yes, his mix was bad, but also it can be a style if the mix is not exactly what Kristóf would like. There are different mixes for different types of people. Some people like different sorts of things, and some things do fit with certain genres more. There's no perfect mix that's universal. It's kind of subjective. Then I have Too Distorted, in my opinion, which is basically just the drop when it came around the 1 minute left mark. It just felt a bit like brrr. I realize now I should have drawn a parallel between Too Distorted and Sounds Muddy, because those are basically the same thing. I really like the lyrics. I really like the image of dancing in the clouds. Then I noticed that his pronunciation was a bit of a problem for me because he wasn't, well, I mean, it's understandable. It's not his first language, so it is gonna be a bit hard to understand him if he doesn't speak it constantly. So it's not that big of a deal, but pronunciation was a bit of a problem for me with the understanding. I had to go into, for both his first round and second round, actually like most of his rounds, I've had to go into the comments to see what the lyrics he posted in the comments were. Sounds muddy to me. I basically said what that was just at that drop. It felt like there was too many conflicting frequencies on the lower end. Like the melody sounded good, but it was getting sort of drowned out by, I think, the basses were sort of like clashing together, and I felt like it was a bit much. But that also could be my well, it could just be my opinion, because if you look at Robin's face after that drop, it pans up to his face and he's like, yeah, yes, this is the take, and he's really happy with the drop. So I'm guessing that he really likes that and I just don't. So I guess harkening back to mix is style. I like the callback to his the Kristóf's Superman line that he did in the second round against Joshua. Pretty fun because he's flying up in the sky, so he's like, "Oh, if you need a Superman to save you, I'll call him," or something along those lines. I don't remember the exact lyric. Really loved the ending. It was sort of, it reminded me of, for like only one reason, Kristóf's second round against PSN, where it was a constant riser, and then it just sort of, I was expecting it to rise into a drop, but it just keeps rising and then just sort of it's the end. I just really loved it really felt like a finale, the way that it ended. And then I put Robin's the better battler, basically just saying that a bit of, well, most of Kristóf's comebacks were kind of weak, and Robin's ability to mix his comebacks within his rounds, he was really on top of that. And so I think his battle energy was a lot better than Kristóf's. I think Kristóf needs to work on that a bit more. He seems like maybe he's just too nice or something. Then I noticed, oh, he's a robin and he's flying up in the sky. Robins fly, birbs, birb. I just wrote birb because bird. When watching Brez's behind the scenes video, which I also thought to do before I recorded this, I noticed that his little drum in the beginning after he said, music is just style, bro. And then some sort of drum pattern going into, and then I think it was supposed to go when he went shh. That noise would have went on with the hot air balloon as well with the fire. That moment where the camera went down and looked at Brez's gimbal, I realized, well, he said in the video that his gimbal went into sleep mode, and so he had to take it off and like film the rest of it just handheld. And that only happened on the one good take, so they couldn't redo that. Sort of a combination of his pronunciation being bad and the sounds being muddy in that drop, and sort of like from then on out, it was hard to understand the lyrics. I felt like all the higher frequencies were kind of being drowned out, and that included his lyrics, so I don't know if I'd be able to understand or hear him better if there hadn't been so much clashing with that those lower frequencies. But I don't know, I just feel like you shouldn't need to go into the comments to know what the lyrics are or even the approximation of some of the lyrics. Especially if you're a native English speaker, you should be able to understand it at least like 90%. I was just thinking when he was building all the different melodies on top of each other that he's just throughout the whole competition, he's just had so many great melodies, and it's always great bass melody, a great like primary melody, a melody that's sort of secondary, and then he sings a melody over top of those, and it's never too much and everything works very well together. I saw someone in the comments say, it's called style, bro, and Zeka's, it's called style, haters. Shh. I just thought it was funny that those were both so similar, and I wonder if Robin's gonna meet the same fate that Zeka did in the kickback battle, come second by just a tiny bit. My notes for Kristóf are as follows. The dog bark or whatever the it sounded like a dog bark to me. I thought that was a bit weak. I did listen to them both on 2x speed, and it sounded better on 2x speed, that part, but whatever. I didn't like the auto-tune. I'm pretty sure a lot of people weren't crazy about the auto-tune. I feel like because the Mark II has a pretty bad auto-tune feature currently. I'm sure they'll put out some patches to fix that, since it is just a prototype. Yeah, but at the same time, I feel like people would like that, some people, and so it's like I don't like it. And just like the mix with Robin, it's like, I mean, auto-tune is style, just like Robin's mix is style, so you roasting his mix while having an auto-tune that sounds bad to me is sort of like, yeah, both of those are style. It's a recurring melody, but the melody he makes first before the ASMR portion, just the first thing he makes, it's sort of rising and just sort of like a wave with the crescendo and decrescendo. I just think the texture of that and just everything about that melody is, I really like that a lot. That part I didn't like. Speaking back to the style thing, preference of different styles, but the bit I didn't like after he introduced the autotune, where he went into the beginning of the psytrance section. I mean, I listened back to it and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can see how people would like this. I think it's okay. I think I just didn't like it personally, and so I don't think I'll take off like many, if any points at all for that bit, because it was fine. I mean, speaking of melodies, both with both of them. The high-pitched melody at the end, the real sort of Middle Eastern vibe with the texture of that high-pitch melody at the end, and I just love the way he went with that. I think it fit really well. And I mentioned before that like the high pitched sound he does, the high pitched sound that he does the melody with, he makes a little sound at the end, and it sort of fades off with some reverb and sounds like a seagull sort of fading into the distance. I do wish, because it sounds like a seagull to me, that he'd have some more sounds that sort of sounded a bit more like a beach at the end, but then I would just be getting a little too picky, I feel. While I didn't like the autotune when he first introduced it, because it was just way too juxtaposed, in way too much contrast in my opinion, but at the end when he brought it back, it fit into the mix a lot more in my opinion, and it really fit the vibe a lot more. Also, he was harmonizing the high-pitched sound with the autotune, and I think that extra bit of texture to the melody really added, it really went a long way. Something I noticed, I didn't see this in the comments, but I noticed that, I mean, at the beginning of Robin's round, he's saying, like, I'm incorporating all these elements, but with Kristóf's round, he incorporated the elements too. He went with a very nature focused, a very organic feel with the vibe and everything and the bird sounds and blah blah blah. So in a way, that's sort of like a counter, I guess. I saw this in the, well, I mean, he was singing in Hungarian, and I saw in the comments that Madaraka or ku or something means bird in Hungarian, so he was singing about a little bird, and he's like, oh, maybe a robin. So it's sort of a counter against Robin's name. Also, bird sounds were used a lot in the tracks. That was a lot of the vibe in the background. So I like the incorporation of that into the lyrics, it being a battle move and it being part of the music as well. Also, I mean, I'm sure he had this round probably planned out a bit before he saw Robin's round, but it's sort of a counter to the fact that Robin was up in the air flying, and so since he was in the air, he made something based upon birds, which do indeed fly in the air, so. And the last note I did was basically just what I read from the comments, it being a mixture of Hungarian folk and Goa slash Psytrance. Goa, I think like a city or a town in India, and some sort of electronic music came out of there that was basically what he did in the end, where he incorporated the Hungarian folk sort of vibe with the lyrics and that at the same time, and they really fit well together. So really really creative stuff, and I really like the round a lot more now that I listened back to it more. It was also kind of hard to really appreciate the round as much because I didn't know what the lyrics were. I wish he put down in the comments what the lyrics translate to in English, or at least put the lyrics in their Hungarian form so I could translate them. I tried looking in the comments section, I didn't look very hard, but for a lyric translation, but there wasn't any that I saw. So I'm done with the notes section. If you're still here, I guess you just like to hear me talk because